Evan Ferguson is currently underway with his West Ham medical ahead of joining us on loan for the remainder of the season tomorrow before the window closes. We're now into Fergie time. Yes, I used that joke earlier on a video I could not use on YouTube and I liked it, so I'm using it again, and that's that. But it could be a really busy deadline day for West Ham and West Ham fans. We could make 3 signings. Not only could we make 3 signings, all 3 signings could be strikers. That's what we're going to be discussing today, because signings at West Ham are a bit like buses in London. You wait all month and 3 rock up at once. If you're new to the Hammers Chat YouTube channel, please do subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. And also drop a like on the video as well by clicking thumbs up. Over 1,300 people liked the video earlier on today. That cheered me right up. I've just watched Arsenal demolish Man City. Didn't really enjoy it. Didn't really like it. But that number perked me right up, so thank you very much. Evan Ferguson. The deal reported earlier appears to have been correct and pretty accurate, actually. It's a straight loan, no option to buy, no obligation to buy. And there's a lot of West Ham fans upset over the lack of option to buy in there, and that it doesn't offer protection for West Ham should Ferguson come in. Because worst case scenario is actually best case scenario for West Ham, really. Because best case in terms of here and now is Ferguson comes in, stays fit, scores a few goals, because we know he'll fit into Potter's system. We don't even have that debate to have. Will he fit in? Will Potter get the best out of him? We know the answer to that because we've seen it at Brighton. So best case for West Ham, he stays fit for the next few months, grabs a few goals, we move up a couple of league positions. The loan fee and the wages we've forked out on Ferguson is repaid by Ferguson's performances and goals. But that's also the worst thing that could happen for West Ham, because then in the summer, we've got no negotiating power really unless Ferguson kicks up a stink, because Brighton will turn around and demand more money than what they would demand today. The price tag for Ferguson today is 40 million, and I think a lot of people hoped that we'd have an option to buy of 40 million for Ferguson in the summer. And I completely understand it. No one has to explain why they want the option to buy in there. I get it. Rule of thumb, loaning players in, option to buy. Loaning players out, obligation to buy. Rule of thumb. And the Jesse Lingard thing's still there. It's still in the back of our minds. He came in, smashed it, went back to Man U. We tried to buy him, they wouldn't play ball, and we chased him all summer. And I think that was the problem. It wasn't that we couldn't sign Jesse Lingard, that was the issue. Well, it was an issue. But the issue could have been stopped there and then by moving on to an additional target. But we didn't. We pursued Jesse Lingard all transfer window. And I think that was the real problem. So I understand why people have frustrations with a lack of option to buy. And it feels like we're doing Brighton a favour because they're sending us their striker that can't get into the first 11. We're going to put him in ours. We're going to getting fitter, hopefully get him goals so he goes back in form. More clubs want him, price value goes up. I understand it, but I look at it the other way. They're doing us a favour. We need a striker to get us over the next few months. Remember, Fulkrug should be fit before the end of the season, so we need a striker for the next 3-4 months, and that's it. Ferguson is very low cost. I guessed his wages earlier at 50 grand a week. It's less than that, 30 grand a week is what Evan Ferguson is on at Brighton. So we'll be paying all those wages. We will give Brighton a few million for him. But if we can get 2 places higher in the league, we'll make a profit on Evan Ferguson if that works. If you get what I mean. The prize money will be greater than the outlay for Evan Ferguson. So yes, Brighton are doing us a favour. Yes, we're doing them a favour. That's how I'm looking at it. But a large part of that is because I have no desire to sign Ferguson. I'm willing to change my mind. I'm not that stubborn. Change your mind is a good thing. But he would have to stay fit between now and the end of the season. No niggles, nothing. And be in remarkable form. And then I might think, do you know what? Maybe we should sign him. Because my concern today isn't over Ferguson's ability. It's not over him fitting into Potter's team as we've already established. It's over his injury record. And come the summer, I'm still going to have concerns over Evan Ferguson's injury history. That's still going to be valid. But we're all assuming the reason West Ham don't have an option to buy in this deal is to get the deal done. Brighton want an obligation or a permanent transfer. We want an option to buy. They've met in the middle, removed the option, so it's a quicker negotiation. one less barrier, one less thing to agree on, and it's a risk on West Ham's part. And that's probably the reason for the lack of option to buy. But there is a small chance that the reason we're okay to pursue that deal is because of Eli Junior Kroupi. Now, I've never heard of him. Ex-West Ham employee linked us to him last week. That's the first time I've ever heard of this guy. And I assumed we would be signing one striker, so it was Ferguson or Kroupi or Robbie or Pepe. Looks like it could be both. Because Jacob Steinberg, today when the news for Ferguson came out, Steinberg said, well, they're still after Cummings and they're still after Kroupi. Tonight, ex-West Ham employees said actually West Ham are getting quite optimistic that they will sign Kroupi tomorrow and a deal can be done with their club, Lorient. So tomorrow we could sign Cummings, Ferguson and Kroupi. We could end up having 3 strikers arriving tomorrow. That would be exciting, wouldn't it? But in regards to Cummings, I'm not going to discuss him. I'm confident he will join at some point. Whether it's Celtic do a deal with us and he comes in tomorrow for about $500,000, or he comes in the summer on a pre-contract agreement. We've already done a deal with Cummings. We've already agreed personal terms with him. We're now calling out Celtic a little bit. Either we have him in the summer and we will have to pay a cross-border compensation, which is believed to be around £250,000 to £300,000, or we can give Celtic $500,000 now and take him now. So it's up to Celtic really. Do you want to accept the extra 250 grand and let Cummings go now? The problem is they've only got 2 strikers. They sold a striker earlier on this window, so they've only got 2 strikers now. So Cummings is technically their third choice striker. But the rules in Scotland, he's been smashing it for Celtic's second team. It is against, it is a low level of Scotland. The quality of football is not great. But if he plays 5 times for Celtic's senior team, he's no longer allowed to play for their B team. That's the rule in Scotland. So you can't go between the 2 teams. Like I can't play a couple of games for the first team, then go back into the B team and come back into the first team. 5 games, and that's it. You're ineligible for the B team. So that would explain his lack of senior appearances thus far. But he did come off the bench in the Champions League against Aston Villa. So we'll wait and see what Celtic do. I'm confident with signing him. It's just whether it's tomorrow or in the summer. But in regards to Kroupi, this would be an interesting one. And I do wonder, maybe the reason we're relaxed on not signing Ferguson in the summer, not having an option to buy, is because maybe we've got no intention. Maybe Ferguson is a stopgap so that when Kroupi comes in, the pressure's off him. He can get plenty of minutes between now and the summer. We can really evaluate him in the Premier League, get him used to the Premier League, get him used to London while Ferguson's the main man. Then in the summer, hopefully, with 6 months behind him, Fulkrug back, we'll still need to sign a striker, but the pressure will be off a little bit. And maybe I'm clutching at straws, but maybe that's why West Ham are okay with no option to buy in this deal. Maybe we've got no intention buying Evan Ferguson. I hope this deal happens, Kroupi, and it's not because I know anything about him. I had a look on Y Scout. His statistics are good, but I'm discarding them, and I'm a data man sometimes, but there's just not enough. He's so young that one goal would significantly change all his statistics, his average of goals per minute, etc. All that would go flying up if he scores a goal. Whereas you compare him to a more senior player like Salah, he scores a goal, nothing changes, doesn't touch the side. So data, I think, is difficult when there's little of it. But his footage looks really calm and composed in front of goal, passes it into the back of the net. I like a striker that does that. I think it takes out the... You can have a conversation regarding the ability of defenders and goalkeepers, etc., that a striker's facing, especially when it's at a lower league. But I think the way that he finishes removes the conversation around the goalkeeper to some extent. The goalkeeper's positioning is okay, but he's just passing it, placing it into the far corner and whatnot. However, footage is limited. He's only scored so many goals. There's only so much I've been able to watch. So I've had a conversation with someone who's heard of him before we were linked to him and knows quite a bit about him. But before we get into that, I just want to point you in direction of this video sponsor, Stocks FC. Now, if you know your De Bruyne's from your daylits, this could be the platform for you. Stocks FC is where you can purchase stocks in your favourite players, whether you go for the more established ones like Salah or the upcoming ones, whether you're looking for the next Eli Junior Kroupi on there or not. You get rewarded in real time when they perform. Their goals, their assists, their key passes all contribute to the dividends paid out on Stocks FC. Team of the week, team of the month, team of the season. If you can get stocks in those players that achieve those teams, you get paid out. Now we've got an offer for you here at Hamish Chat to get you up and running so you can get a bit of a feel for the platform as well and work out what's going on, get used to the scoring matrix as well. If you sign up using our link, which is in the description below, or use the QR code that's on your screen now, you will get 5 players on loan for 1 month for free. Now, if you were to sign up normally through Google, you'd only get 2 players, so you're getting extra players because you're coming from Hamish Chat, so you get 5 players on loan for the month. And then you can work out how they score points, how do they get paid out in dividends, because some of the players you will have on loan will be in team of the season, will be in team month. Not always, I'm not guaranteeing that, but if you get a bit lucky with the 5 players you get, but it'll allow you to have a little look around. Over the next couple of months, myself and Gonzo will be sharing our portfolios, who we're purchasing stocks in, and who's doing well and who's not doing too well. Liam Delap done fantastic for me. Mohamed Kudus, not so great, but I'm hoping that'll change under Potter. I'm hoping his performances will pick up, and I will be a happy bunny off the back of it. Anyway, links in the description below. So, I caught up with Sloth from Babbling Irons, who Lorient is his French team, and it's fair to say Kroupi is someone he knows quite a bit about. Here's all you need to know about Eli Junior Kroupi. Sloth from Babbling Irons, right. Eli Junior Kroupi, am I even pronouncing it right? Is that how you pronounce his name? Is it Kroupi?
Yeah, it's Kroupi.
Right then, let's start with the good before we do the bad, shall we? Tell me about the player. Tell me his strengths and what impresses you about him.
So he's quite slight. He's probably best suited as a striker in a 4-3-3 system, which Lorient tend to play. But he has featured across the attack, and he's also featured as a sort of second striker. And Lorient are probably they're my French team, really. I love them, and I've been watching them since Terry Moffi was there before his move to Nice, and we were sort of linked with him quite a bit as well. But one thing about him is that he's versatile. And I know people might go, oh, that suggests that he doesn't quite have a best suited position. But when you watch him, you see someone who is beyond his years in terms of decision making, and also his ability to create space, find runs, and lose his marker. And I think that when you really look at that, mixed with the versatility and the fact that he is so young, it's the combination of being able to work him into a side, bring him off the bench and say to him, look, I can't get you on the pitch because we've got Bowen on the right-hand side who's having a stormer, or, we've got Ferguson's doing really well up top. I just want you to play off him. And like I mentioned with Lorient, that is something that they used to do with Kone, who they had up top. They did it with Bambo as well last season, but these would be focal points and they win things in the air and Kroupi would run onto them. And I think that with his electric pace, it's a game changer. It's one of those things where after 70 minutes, if you've had Ferguson, Bowen, Kudus, Somerville running at you for 70 minutes, and then you bring on a youngster who is incredibly technically capable, but rapid as anything, and I would say he's probably quicker than Somerville and Kudus, it's a very scary prospect for any defender.
When I was having a little look at him, his finishing impressed me. He does look very, not just clinical, but very composed. And I like a striker that passes it into the back of the net, just seamlessly bang into the far corner and takes the keeper out of the equation. Would you say that's a fair review of how he finishes in and around the box?
I think that's a good review. He's very calm and composed under pressure. And we were having a little chat beforehand, and I mentioned he scored a really good goal against Lyon, which is probably one of the easiest goals to find of his, where he's outside the area. He just makes a little yard of space for himself with a great first touch, and he curls it into the top corner. It's one of those ones where he makes it look really easy. He doesn't hit it hard, like seemingly. It just curls into the net, and it's effortless. As you say, I think he has that composure where he makes it look easy. His dad was a footballer, so he's obviously been taught very, very well from a very young age. But he's got that striker's brain, and he's able to drift off those marking him, create a bit of space for himself, and pick the finish that is best for the situation. And you can really see when you look at his goal catalogue, there's quite a wide variety of finishes already.
In regards to his weaknesses, then, what because given that he's only 18 years old, I think it's fair to expect he's not the finished article yet, and there's a little bit of training and coaching to do. What's required from him?
I think the finishing with his left foot is the big one. He is very, very good technically, and he can carry the ball really well. But it's the finishing with the left foot that needs to improve. That is something that I think at any age, everyone has a preferred foot. But if he really wants to become a top level footballer, which I think he can be, I think he can go right to the very top. He just needs to improve that and become a bit more two-footed and confident with that left foot. The other thing I'd say is probably just his strength overall. He's improved his heading, which I think was a weakness, particularly when he was in League One. But this season, I think if he can add a little bit of muscle, because he is so young, if he can add that muscle, strength, and he has a good understanding of how to use his frame, because he's he's very agile and kind of long-limbed for someone who's 5'9", but he manages to wriggle away from players and create that yard of space. But I think if he can add a bit of strength to hold off players, they're the areas that I think will see him reach that really high top level.
Right then, in regards to comparing him to a Premier League striker, a current one, not ability, just style, pure style. Is there someone that comes to mind? Or is there anyone that you could, just for those of us that don't know much about him and stuff like that, so we can imagine it a little bit more in our head? Is there anyone you would pick out?
So this is a dangerous one. It's not current, but it is a dangerous one that a lot of people in France have been comparing him to Thierry Henry because of that sort of left wing and sort of ability to make things look easy, link up well with others, and as you mentioned with the finishing, make it look easy. He does that really well. In terms of players at the moment, I really like his sort of doggedness and work rate and pressing. And I think Yoann Wissa is quite a good comparison. Also former Lorient player. But he is someone who he matches that same sort of pace, work ethic, and ability to finish and link up with others. So he's probably the most direct comparison, I'd say. But in terms of the big shouts, it's generally he's compared to Thierry Henry and Nicolas Anelka.
Other people, not Sloth. Other people compare him to those. Yeah. Is he good enough for now? Because obviously we're looking to bring him in the next 24 hours before the window closes, alongside Ferguson. So it feels like it's taking the pressure off him a little bit. So it's not like, right, you're coming in, you're going straight in. So it does feel like he'd be coming in as a squad option. But is he good enough to sort of, just for now, but going into next season, I think would be the important decision. I think it's obvious he would get some game time now because we've got nothing to play for really in terms of the league and stuff. So it's possibly a good environment and situation to bring him in and trial him without much risk. But you'd imagine Potter in the summer is really going to try and get that squad the way that he wants it. Do you think he's good enough to come in now and make an impact? Not so much now, but certainly next season.
100%. I think, as I mentioned before, if you bring him in off the bench, he's a huge asset and a huge threat to any defence, if not just because of that ballistic pace. But when you combine that with his finishing and the fact that where I've really liked watching him is when he links up well with others, and he's got that ability that Paqueta and Emerson have when they're sort of knocking it about, playing one touch and giving each other space and getting the fans on their feet. He can do that as well. And I think that it's too early to start him, but to bring him off the bench or rotate him in and, you know, say, look, here's a cup game, even next season, you know, oh, we'll get you starting in the cups. That's a great way to develop him, because I do think that there is a player ready at this level. And, you know, in Ligue 1, he has played there last season. He scored 5 goals and he got 3 assists. So, you know, for a young 17-year-old, that's fantastic stats. And it's under 1,100 minutes of football he was playing. So that's really impressive productivity. And I know that people might go, oh, you know, that's just it's Ligue 1 and you know, it's stats. Stats are quite easy to manipulate. But when you factor in that he's a small 17-year-old, or he was a smaller 17-year-old, playing against very good opposition, and France is a very physical league. People like to knock it, but you know, the centre backs there are incredibly strong, and you just have to look at the Wolves defender they brought in, who is already looking like an absolute unit, Agbadou. But
yeah,
he was playing against men like that and productive. So I do think there is a way that he comes in and adds to a season, adds to the end of the season now, and grows next season as well.
All right, I'm going to ask you where he's going to play in Potter's team in just a second. But before I do that, for people at home, you don't know who this guy is. His name's Sloth. Well, his name's Steve, but we call him Sloth. For Babbling Irons, it's a West Ham YouTube channel. I'll put the link to their YouTube channel in the description and pinned comments of this video. So if you've yet to subscribe to their channel, please please go and do so. It only takes you a couple of seconds. You never know. You might like what you see. You'll see and hear more from this guy anyway, and he knows more about continental football than I do, arguably domestic football as well. That's up for you to decide. Right then, obviously with Potter, I think it's fair to assume that we're going to be seeing sort of 1 striker and 2 number 10s and behind them for the remainder of the season. Where would you see Kroupi fitting into that? Or do you think it's as and when situation that Ferguson needs to come off, he goes up front, but Ferguson's playing well, maybe Bowen or Paqueta needs to come off, they come off, and he goes into that number 10. What's the ideal, do you think?
I think we'd probably be best off bringing him on for someone like Paqueta. As I mentioned, you know, he's very good with those quick one-touch passes and linking up with players. And if you wanted to add that pace and change the front line somewhat, that could be a really good threat. So I think what he gives you is not just the electric pace, it's also that versatility as well, because he could easily come in for Ferguson after 70 minutes or so and just to, you know, kind of wrap him in cotton wool as such and not have to worry about him getting injured. But his ability to link up well with others, and he has featured in that sort of 10 role before, I think that would really appeal to Potter, for him to be able to have someone to run off a striker, or, you know, be playing with Bowen and making space for him and dragging defenders away. I think it's been a long time since West Ham have just had a ballistic pace man up top, you know, someone who can really just sit on the last man and even give them a yard. But if the ball is knocked over them, there's no chance. And if Potter wants him to play up top to utilise that, I think he'd be fantastic that way.
Well, Sloth, thank you very much. And you guys, thank you very much at home. Make sure you check out Babbling Irons. But if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe to Hammers Chat. Get involved in the comments below. Let us know what you think on the player, as well as the deal. Sometimes 2 different opinions. And we shall catch you in a bit.